So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this ECPGR Crop Trust webinar. This is the first time we organize a joint webinar, and you should be aware that I am Lorenzo Maggione, speaking from the ECPGR Secretariat, and we have a memorandum of understanding with the Crop Trust, which is based in Bonn. Since we share the same principles regarding the conservation and use of plant genetic resources according to the international treaty principles. And we have received a request from the Trust to present some of their global crop strategies. You are probably aware that the Trust has developed several crop strategies, and today we will hear a presentation about two of these strategies on eggplant and capsicum. The objective is to promote these strategies within the SPGR community, to make you aware of the content, and especially trying to push towards implementation of strategies, but Europe has a possible strong role in helping these to come through. We know that many ECPGR members have helped actually in the preparation and development of these strategies. So I'm telling you how the logistic of this meeting is going. We have now you don't have the possibility to speak at the moment, but you will be able to ask questions and answers. But we will start with a number of presentations, and I will soon pass the word to Peter Giovannini from the Trust, who will be leading this meeting. We will have three, I guess, or four presentations, and after them, we will have a discussion through question and answers, and we may also be able to give you the word, unmute you if possible and if useful. Probably there will be 1 hour of presentations and then half an hour of discussion if you manage to stay that long. So, having said this, I'm happy to pass the floor to Peter Giovannini and wish you a good meeting.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending this webinar. I'm going to share my screen to introduce the objective of this webinar. Yes, thanks to Lorenzo for kindly introducing us. And as he mentioned, the objectives of this webinar are to raise awareness of the strategy within this community, understanding and discussing the role of ECPGR members in the global system of conservation for capsicum and eggplant. And we'll also look at stimulating a discussion on how ECPGR members can contribute or are already contributing to the implementation of the priorities identified in the strategies. In terms of the outline of today's webinar, we'll have an introduction on the global crop conservation strategies. That will be a short 5 minutes presentation. I think by looking at the name of the attendees, many of you are already familiar with the strategies. We'll then have a presentation from Svein Solberg from the University of Ireland, Norway, and lead author of the global strategy for the conservation and use of eggplants, and he's going to talk about the findings of the strategy. I will then present the findings of the strategy for the conservation and use of capsicum genetic resources. And then we will have my colleague, Christelle Rabil, talking about data and linking the recommendations in the strategies with current tools and databases. We will have a short presentation by Martin von Sonneveld from the World Vegetable Center. He will link the work of World Veg with the global context, so that we will also have this global picture in mind. And then after the presentation, we will have a discussion. And the idea is that we will try to have a focused discussion. I will suggest a couple of starters for discussion. And then after the focused discussion, if there's still time, we can also have a classic Q&A. And then after that, we will just make our conclusion and wrap up the webinar. So that's for the general outline. And as mentioned, what follows is a short introduction on the strategies. So I assume now you can see the slide.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So in this short presentation, I would look at introducing the global crop conservation strategies. I must also mention that the Crop Trust has also developed some regional conservation strategies. But today we will focus on the global crop conservation strategies. And these are basically an assessment of the current status of global conservation system at the level of a specific crop and its wild relatives, and include recommendations and priorities for actions that have been developed through consultation with stakeholders and experts. The strategies respond to the need of synthesizing in one single document information that is captured through many different sources and not always readily accessible. And they also look at sharing priorities and activities with intent that gene banks and stakeholders can coordinate in the future toward the implementation of this. There has been 27 crop conservation strategies developed between 2006 and 2019. Many of these were facilitated by the Crop Trust, and also some of these were facilitated by Biodiversity International. You can see the list here. Also, between 2021 and 2023, there were 15 additional strategies that were developed and published as part of a project that was funded by the German Federal Ministry for Food and Agriculture. And as you can see, the eggplant conservation strategies and the capsicum conservation strategies were part of this last batch. And probably also of interest of this particular group, the SONAS working group, is also the global strategy for the conservation of potato, which was also updated in this last batch. And to give a better idea of the content of the strategies, here there's the example of the table of content from the global strategy for the conservation and use of capsicum genetic resources. I will speak more in depth later on another presentation on it, but to give a feeling of the content of the strategies, you can see after some introductory chapters, you have a core section on ex situ conservation, covering the collections, their management, and the conditions in which they're kept, looking at regeneration, multiplication, characterization, evaluation, safety duplication, documentation and information sharing, the access and distribution of the material. And there's also a chapter in the strategies on in situ conservation, and a final chapter where you can find the recommendations and the activities that have been identified as priorities. So generally, all the published strategies can be found on the Crop Trust website to be freely downloaded. and you can also find them on Xenodo, an open repository. We also published some short summaries for some of the strategies, and these short summaries with key metrics are also available on the CropTrust website. And finally, worth to mention that currently we are conducting a project. The title of the project is Mainstreaming the Global Crop Conservation Strategies in Plant Treaty Processes. And this project is funded by the German Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Regional Identity. And this webinar is part of is one activity that is part of this project, which aims at creating further awareness about the strategies and also enhancing their impact at the level also of different avenues and
It seems we have lost Peter.
Oh, maybe I shall start then, and I think Peter, he was almost finished, and he will continue afterwards. So, okay. So I will present the strategy for eggplant, and of course, a central position here is to overview the global collections, existing collections, and we used, of course, Genesis and also FAO views, and we tried to overview the current collections. In addition to what is in these global databases, we surveyed other sources, and we found significant collections outside the global databases. And we also worked on looking at the relationship between production and conservation, and also the conservation biological status, and also specifically more into the crop wild relatives conservation. We made this databases review, but we also, when identified the collection holders, we sent out a questionnaire to the holders, and also invite them to consultancy meetings or webinars or online meetings, 3 of them, during this process. And based on all this data, we made up this global strategy, focusing on the collections, but also on gaps and what is needed in the future to promote conservation and use of eggplant genetic resources. Of course, I was not alone in this work, and here is the co-authors of the eggplant strategy, with Martin from WorldVeg, Mohammed Raka from Egypt, and his wife Dalia Tahe, and Jaime, that you might know from Spain, from Valencia, and of course Peter, which you recognize here, and Robert Jarrett from USA, and William from I'm not so good in Dutch, so sorry for that, from CGR in the Netherlands. And we got a lot of input from the collection holders. Is a panel of them with valuable information on different things that are included in the strategy document. Of course, we focus on the 3 cultivated species, the common eggplant or aubergine, but we also had the scarlet eggplant, which is the Ethiopian eggplant, and also another African eggplant, and of course their wild relatives. What we identified was not very surprising, but there were a lot of collections, 110 collection holders in 76 countries having eggplants. But there are a few large collections, 5 collections with more than 500 accessions. But a lot of the collections have a small amount of accessions, like 78 of the collections have less than 100 accessions, and 55, more than half of the collections, are having less than 20 eggplant accessions. Here is an illustration of the same finding, with the largest 5 making up a great majority of the total number of accessions in the global conservation system. Of course, of the 193 United Nations recognized countries, not all have collections. 125 have no current eggplant collections. 60 countries not listed in the global databases would potentially have eggplants conserved. Most of these countries are developing countries in Africa and Asia. China, Iran, and Indonesia, 3 major producing countries in the world, are not in the Genesis or in the FIU system with eggplants, and also the collections from Australia, Republic of Korea, Uruguay, South Africa, and Russian collections of eggplants is not in the global databases. We could see a connection, although weak, between the eggplant production area downloaded from FAO statistics and the number of accessions in the conservation system. The R square is 0.2 around in this log transformed data. Where some countries are having many accessions, but also large production areas. And the opposite, some areas or some countries like the UK having quite many accessions, but almost no production of eggplant. Same with Netherlands, some production, but very many accessions. And it's based, of course, of the global outreach of the varieties that are produced in the Netherlands or in the UK. Coming to the species and the biological status, we could see that there, let's try to find this pinpointer. We could see that for Brinjal or the common eggplant, it is not that many wild accessions. It's a lot of land races, some breeding material, and here is the percentage of the whole collection. But what is interesting is this 77.8 with no info on the biological status. The same picture with the Ethiopian eggplant or this scarlet eggplant, and also the Gumba eggplant. So at least it shows there is lots of the accessions that has no information of the biological status. This could be, of course, it could be land races or cultivars. Most likely it is, but it is not stated in the databases. Crop wild relatives. We follow the gene pool concept and focused on the crop wild relative priority checklist. And here in bold are the priority species from the checklist. So here's the number of accessions conserved in the global system as far as we could identify, which is, for some of the species, it is nothing conserved, but for some it is a very few species, and for some of the priority species, it's very few also accessions from the wild relatives of eggplant. Here is the tertiary gene pool, where you can see some of the priority species with no accessions conserved, or very few, like 2 here. So we could identify some of these gaps. There are only 79 wild accessions of the primary gene pool species of common eggplant. for example. And there are species from the crop wild relative priority checklist who is no or very few accessions in the global ex situ conservation system. Okay, the next step was this survey that we made among the collection holders. We asked different questions on the survey and SurveyMonkey questions. We got responses from 30, around 32, it was collection holders. And we asked, for example, on germination tests, how frequent, and here are the results, like most have it every 5th year or every 10th year, but some have it more seldom. Seeds used for germination tests, usually it's around 100 seeds. Number of plants per regeneration, it vary, of course, but usually it's around or about 20 plants. Safety duplication, a lot of them didn't specify, but what is interesting is that 15% of the replies had no safety duplication of their eggplant collections. Pest and disease effects on conservation. It was not so easy to conclude here, but minor effects on the conservation, but some major effects on distribution. The distribution number of accessions from the given survey results is maybe not so very interesting, but we see that some of the collection holders, they distribute a lot of accessions, like more than 100 accessions. But most of them have less than 10 accessions a year, which they distribute. And a number of recipients, it's also a few that have very many. I would guess like World Vegetable Center is in this group, but there are also many of the collections that only distribute to a few recipients. So the survey gave us some interesting points that we also asked about, the funding, availability of accessions, and the collaboration issues, which was included in our recommendations. We ended up with 7 kind of activities to be conducted in our recommendations in this global strategy. And the first one, which we might discuss later, it is that to establish or introduce or connect a global eggplant working group and knowledge platform. This is about coordination, collaboration, and communication. And it might also be about linking different regional working group that already are established. The second activity was on gap analysis, both on identifying gaps in the global conservation systems, like the crop wild relatives that we talked about, but also about duplicate screening, so we don't keep too many duplicates of accessions. Plant health issue is still a problem, especially in the collections that distribute globally. And there is a connection to these virus issues or viroids issues linked to distribution. Regeneration and safety duplication was also an activity that we recommended in the strategy, and this is mainly to reduce backlogs and improve quality. And this is quite normal gene bank activity, as you know. And collection missions could be to identify and collect new accessions, especially of wild relatives, and especially also in the area where the diversity is very high, like in Africa and Southeast Asia. Here's African eggplant. It's you can read about the details in these graphics in the report. But the sixth recommendation was that we focus on morphological and genomic characterization, or having joint activities there to improve the knowledge of the material and to enhance the use of the eggplant material. The last one is promote the use of crop wild relatives in breeding through public-private partnerships. This is quite a big issue, but it is nevertheless an important issue, especially related to abiotic and biotic stress tolerance, and these things on climate change is also highly relevant here. What we did, we dared to make up a budget for these seven different activities, and on a frame of 4 years. And this is, of course, kind of very rough estimates, but and it also includes a lot of in-kind contribution from the collection holders. But to move forward, it should be some kind of project initiated to move on here, but that we might discuss later. So thank you. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Svein, and apologies that my last slide of the previous presentation was not shown, and I will proceed with the next presentation. I will talk about the global strategy for the conservation and use of capsicum genetic resources that was published in 2022. The lead authors are Derek Barchinger from the World Vegetable Center and Colin Curry. Unfortunately, they were not available to give a presentation themselves today, so I will speak about it. I am fairly familiar with the strategies, as I facilitated the development and collaborated with them. So the strategy look at giving an overview of the global ex-situ holdings for capsicum, and does that by gathering data from FAO-Views database, Genesis, and also through a tailored survey that was sent to gene banks holding capsicum material. And in terms of the ex-situ holdings, you can see in the bar chart in this slide. This shows the top 26 collection by number of accessions based on the data we gathered, and this, as you can see, also with red arrows in the bar chart, you can see gene banks in Europe, and you can notice how these are quite relevant part of the global holdings, which are the global holdings are estimated to be over 50,000 accessions globally. And also on the bar chart, you can see with the dark blue the collections that have made available more than 80% of their accessions level data on either on Views or Genesis portals. So the charts also show quite clearly the importance of the World Veg collections with more than 9,000 capsicum accessions, and then also it's worth mentioning that there are some collections that are not visible here because they have, in terms of total number of accessions, they have a smaller size, but they are still identified by the strategies as key collections because of the particular diversity they hold. And for example, that's the case for the collection held by the Ecuadorian National Gene Bank, by the Agrosavia Gene Bank in Colombia, and by the INIAF Gene Bank in Bolivia. We can also look at the diversity of collection from different by looking at different parameters. One of these is the number of countries from which the material is originating. And World Veg collection, the French collection at Avignon, the USD collection, CGN collection, IPK collection, and the collection at the Universitat Politecnica de Valencia. They all conserve material from more than 50 countries, and therefore they are particularly diverse according to this parameter. You can also see here on these slides more details about what are the largest collection we identified in Europe in terms of capsicum. And again, the vegetable collection at IRA Avignon is very significant. There's the one in Valencia and also IPK, and again other ones that are as well over 1,000 accessions, such as the one in Italy at the CREA, the CGN, the collection in Hungary, and also the Banco de Germoplasma de Hortícolas in Spain. So this gives a picture that shows that European collection gives a significant contribution to the global conservation of capsicum genetic resources. Their collections is comparable in size to the collection held in Asia and not too far away from the collections held in the Americas. If we look at the composition of collection in terms of taxa, it's clear that the cultivated species are much more represented in collection, and especially Capsicum annum is largely the most represented. It's also clear by looking at this data that the wild species are much less represented, between 1% and 2%, depending of the sources that you use to assess this. And also it's also important to note that there is quite an uneven representation between the small percentage. So there are some taxa that are not represented at all, some species that are not conserved in gene bank, and several ones that had very few accessions. And therefore, one of the priorities identified in this strategy is that further collecting is needed for wild species in the area of distribution. We can look at the diversity also from the point of view, as mentioned before, of the origin of the accessions. This colored map shows for at the level of the genus Capsicum, the countries of origin of the accessions, and you can see where they were most collected. But in terms of conducting gap analysis, we look not only at genus level, but also at the level of each of the cultivated species. And so while doing that, we found out that for Capsicum annum, West and Central Africa are particularly poorly represented in ex situ collections. And there are also some countries in South Asia and in Southeast Asia are underrepresented, or at least they were at the time of doing this analysis. And also some countries in the primary centers of diversity are less represented than other ones, such as, for example, in South America, Venezuela, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and Chile. Similar assessment was done for Capsicum chinense, and again, similarly, it was found Central Africa and West Africa secondary regions of diversity are not well represented ex situ. And also in this case, Southeast Asia and East Asia have a low number of accessions conserved ex situ. And also when similar analysis was done for Capsicum pubescens, most of the collection were collected in Peru, while Mexico, other Central American countries, Ecuador, Colombia, and Bolivia are not as well represented in ex situ collections. It must be said that a big caveat of this type of analysis is that the data is not always complete. So there is in a high percentage of accessions we don't have the biological status information available in the data set we had. And also we didn't have access to all collection accessions level data. And so this is an important constraint and shows also the importance of having access to data and the importance of data completeness in being able to conduct such a gap analysis. This slide is a zoom in on the European region in terms of origin of capsicum accessions. It shows Spain, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, and Turkey are the countries where more accessions originated from. So in these countries, more collecting was conducted. In terms of access of capsicum genetic resources, the strategy shows that there were about 1,000 exchange of capsicum per year during the period 2012-2019 through SMTA. And that's a relatively good numbers compared to other non-Annex 1 crops and compared to other vegetable crops. And similar type of figures we get from FAO views, where also about 1,000 accession distributed per year during the same period. The authors of the strategies argues that the reason of the relatively good access and distribution of capsicum genetic resources compared to other non-Annex 1 crops and other vegetable crops is due to the fact that there are about 10,000 accessions included in the MLS, thanks to the 15 collections. So the collection at the World Vegetable Center and at Katia. Also, they also pointed out that there are some other gene banks that give a big contribution to distributions, and that USDA ARS is the largest distributor internationally. And the final remark is that there is an uneven distribution pattern where a few gene banks contribute the most to distribution, similarly to what Svein has shown for eggplant genetic resources. In terms of the storage of capsicum material, through the survey that we sent to gene banks, we found out that in most of the cases, the average percentage of accessions conserved long-term is high. It's about 80%, and similar high percentage of accessions held in medium-term conditions. And generally, the authors conclude that the storage conditions are good, but there could be improvement in terms of keeping the material under the optimum recommended temperature and using airtight containers, which not every one of the respondents were using at the moment of the survey. It's also important to note that some capsicum wild species have recalcitrant seeds, and therefore the strategy calls as one of the priority further studies on the optimal storage condition for capsicum species. The strategy also looked at safety duplication, and in this case, the findings are very much aligned with what you will find for many other seed crops that are conserved as orthodox seeds, where it's work in progress. You have some gene banks which collection has been completed, have safety duplicated all their collection, and other one who have not duplicated any accessions, and other one that are midway through. There's certainly progress compared to a decade ago, and Svalbard Global Seed Vault, if you look at the current figures, you have that an estimated 22% of estimated global collection is currently deposited at Svalbard, with more than 10,000 accessions. You can also, when you look at the important backup sites, you can also note that there are two gene banks in Europe that make a large contribution as a safety duplication site. These are the Centro Nacional de Recursos Fitogenéticos and Warwick Genetic Resources Unit. The strategy also look at regeneration and identifies it as one of the red flags, as several respondents to the survey reported that the majority of the collection is an urgent need for regeneration. And so this has been mentioned in the strategy as one of the priority for intervention. Moreover, the strategy also looked at characterization and evaluation, found out that, as is often the case, a good percentage of accessions were characterized for their agromorphological traits, but much less for at the level of molecular markers and at the level of stress tolerance for biotic and abiotic stresses. And going towards the conclusion of this presentation, want to look at documentation and information sharing. Here, a large amount, about 60% of respondents mentioned they don't consider their database and information system adequate. So that's also a red flag. In terms of information that is available at accession level data, passport data is the one with the higher percentage, but as mentioned in a previous slides, much less information is available in terms of genotyping or also evaluation of the accessions. And also, it's important to know that not all the information is publicly available. And so also when developing these strategies, one challenge was to put together information that was not easily accessible. We use the survey as a way to gather this information, but it makes the process of developing a strategy much more costly in terms of time and resources. And so we will really see the benefit of increasing the amount of information that is available publicly. So to summarize and conclude this presentation, the strategies recommend to conduct further collecting of wild species, particularly in Brazil, Andes, and Mesoamerica, to strengthen long-term conservation by abide to the conservation standards guideline in terms of optimal temperature and seed packaging. And this applies also to some of the collections in Europe to ensure safety duplication across collection. And this also applies to some of the collections in Europe where there's a similar rate of duplication as the one I showed at the global level. And we have seen there is a lot of room for collaboration there, where there are gene banks in Europe that can act as site of duplication. Then the strategy identify also as priority the study of storage viability and define best practices, and also as a priority to regenerate accessions. And here also in terms of European collection and ECPGR members, there could be space for collaboration for this activity. And further priority mentioned by the strategy is collaboration on characterization and evaluation. I noted that the current project that the Soranase Working Group of ECPGR is conducting, Euro-Pepland, if I'm right, this project seems to be very much a great collaboration that can contribute on getting out more information on characterization, evaluation of capsicum, genetic resources conserved in Europe. And then finally, I mentioned it, there's a need to improve global data accessibility and quality. And this last point will be also covered by the presentation that will be given by my colleague, Christelle. So I thank you for your attention. I will stop here my presentation, give you a few seconds of breath, and then my colleague Christelle can start her presentation.
So hello, everyone. My name is Christelle Rabil, and I am the Data and Information Management Assistant at the Crop Trust, working on Genesis. Today, I want to show you how you can directly address the data-related recommendations from the capsicum and the eggplant strategies. So first, what do these strategies ask for when it comes to data on capsicum and eggplant in ex situ conservation? As Peter mentioned in his presentation on the capsicum strategy, further efforts are needed to provide up-to-date information on the capsicum collections, and for this data to be made more complete, and to enhance the availability of both passport and characterization information. From the eggplant strategy, the recommendation is to improve the data accuracy and completeness, and to also screen for duplicates within and among the gene banks. So in a nutshell, to address these strategies, both at the same time, the first and most essential step is publishing data to UNESCO. And in addition to being Europe's central gateway for plant genetic resources data, I mean, you're already familiar all with UNESCO's role, so I won't be preaching to the choir, but I want to present to you that when your data is in UNESCO, since, as Peter mentioned before, not all the collections are already there. When the data is published in UNESCO, here's where the real synergy happens, because UNESCO is fully integrated with Genesis, which in turn, the data in Genesis is synchronized with the GLIS-DOI registry. And this ensures the efficiency and consistency and maximum visibility of your collections. And this enables the global researchers and readers to explore, subset, and apply your accession data using an array of tools in all of these open databases. And I will focus on the array of tools that would be then made available in Genesis once your data is there via Eurisco. So in this part of the presentation, I would just highlight how sharing your data in Eurisco and having it therefore in Genesis then directly benefit your own gene bank. The key message here is to share your data in Eurisco, not just to meet the recommendations of the strategies, but because this would unlock real practical value and unlock a bunch of tools for your own collections that you can make use of and that your own users can also make use of. So in some sense, fulfilling the strategy recommendations becomes a byproduct, like a nice coincidence, but not the main reason. Because by having data in Genesis via Eurisco, a suite of tools becomes available, such as querying trade data, being able to use Genesis AI, which is an automatic and a smart way to search passport data by prompting Genesis in natural language instead of using filters. You would be able to use something we have in Genesis called the climate search, which matches the accessions with climate profiles at their origin. You would also be able to use the subsetting tool, which is like a do-it-yourself way to create subsets based on agroclimatic variables. You or your users can apply this for your capsicum, eggplant, and other species in Genesis. In Genesis, we also have a tool called the similarity search, which is a way to find similar accessions held either in the same gene bank or between different gene banks. There's also the possibility to add images and attach documents directly linked to the accession passport data within Genesis. Also, Genesis creates automatically visualizations of the data, such as overviews of the distribution of the accessions across the different countries of collection, methods of storage or biological status, etc. There's also heat maps that are generated, geographic maps with the option to overlay climatic maps on the geographic maps of the accession data. So that's directly in Genesis. There's also translated data. Right now we have in Genesis French, Spanish, and Portuguese translations, and more are on the way. Also, for our partner gene banks that provide data to Genesis, our team can generate reports on passport data quality and on passport data completeness. This is sent on demand, and it's a very comprehensive, extensive report that shares tips on how the gene bank can improve the completeness and accuracy of the passport data. Also, by having data in Genesis, we have a tool called Embedded Genesis, which is a tool that mirrors exactly all the data and tools that are already available in Genesis. It just mirrors them on your own GeneBank website without the need to maintain a separate database, pay for it, or anything. Just by having, if you have a GeneBank or institute website, you can just do this, implement this embedded Genesis tool, and it would just act as a mirror, extracting everything from the Genesis database. I will zoom in on this report on data completeness and quality that I mentioned, because it addresses part of the recommendations of Eggplant mainly. This is an example of this report you see on the right-hand side. It's only a small part of it. Here is the example on the validation of geographic data. It shows, it highlights which accessions have incomplete coordinates, missing countries of origins, gives you tips on possible corrections, gives you potential mismatching of country to their geographic coordinates. So this report is generated from the passport data in Genesis already. And it also goes beyond geographic data. Validation also identifies areas for improvement in the missing taxonomy or misspelled taxonomy information and gaps in the key management data, and provide tailored suggestions for your gene bank. So even when your data is not yet available in Genesis, we have made available publicly what we call the validator tool, which helps you check on your own the taxonomic and geographic information in your passport data. So it checks for misspellings, inconsistencies, and the geocoordinates, and it also suggests fixes. But this is not like the report that's automatically generated that that's comprehensive and gives more comprehensive tips. This tool you can use on your own. It's web-based, available for anyone, and it does not store any data that you validate within this tool. I share with you the website. It also includes a small tutorial at the beginning on how you can use it. This is not the direct results of the tool that I demonstrate. It's only conceptual diagrams on what this tool can provide you. But I encourage you to visit it to validate your data and check for potential fixes. I will now share with you the example of the data in Genesis directly of the World Vegetable Center for a more practical idea on how your data would look like if it's in Genesis via Eurisco. So World Vegetable Center already shares data on both capsicum and eggplants. And here I just narrowed down the search to the capsicum accessions, where these are the overview pages or charts that I mentioned that shows the distribution of this collection of capsicum in World Veg across the different species names. Here you see they are sorted by descending order of from the most number of species of capsicum to the least. There's the matches of the taxonomy to the GRIN taxonomy, and the distribution of this collection across the different biological statuses, traditional, wild, etc., and the type of germplasm storage, the countries of the collections of these capsicum accessions, sites of safety duplication, etc. These are also there's a table view for all of this collection that includes much more information, and that also can be downloaded in an Excel format. Also in Genesis, we have, as I said, the maps of these accessions, and with the possibility to overlay climatic maps. This is an example of the annual mean temperature, but there's also 19 different, or actually more than 10 different types of maps. These are the images that the World Veg Gene Bank shared about capsicum that are attached to specific accessions and their passport data. I mentioned the subsetting tool where users or gene bank staff can create smaller groups of these accessions based on different agroclimatic indicators, for example, drought stress. So I want to group the capsicum collection of World Veg. It only works on the accessions that have geographic coordinates. So I want to group that based on similar total precipitation and create like maybe 5 to 8 different groups. And the tool grouped these 200 capsicum accessions that have geographic data in Genesis from World Veg into 5 different groups with similar total precipitation that you can then also visualize on the map, their geographic distribution. and also see different plots. I also want to share with you other, so there's also the Genesis AI, the translations. We don't have time to cover everything and demonstrate it, but interesting for you also is to see the characterization data, how it's can be visualized, filtered in Genesis. This is an example of the characterization data of the chili pepper, bell pepper, and the wild relatives of capsicum from the World Veg Collection. You see here, we have the accessions in the beginning, and almost here in this data set, there's more than 80 different descriptors of these accessions across different categories of, for example, fruit color, plant size, different like duration to fruiting, etc., fruit to blossom and appendage. And the nice thing about this in Genesis is that you can filter those accessions based on their specific traits to narrow down these 5,000 accessions to, for example, only the stem color green and purple, maybe only purple in this case. So 25 items, 25 accessions that have the stem color before transplanting as purple. And these accession data can be downloaded also, can be, you can have an overview about the distribution of these accessions across all the other descriptors in this data set. And you can create heat maps to compare how two different descriptors map to one another. So we see here how the leaf pubescence type compares to the leaf shape. So we have 9 accessions, the majority of these 25 accessions that I filtered for that have purple stem color. The majority have the leaf pubescence that is absent and the leaf shape that is ovate, etc. So with that, I will end this presentation here by just encouraging you again to share your data in Eurisco to meet the recommendations, but more so to benefit so that your gene bank benefits from all the array of tools that are then opened up to you via Genesis when your data is in Eurisco. So thank you, and back to you, Peter.
Thanks, Christelle. And so we are a bit shorter of time as we planned, and it also happens that Martin had to leave. So we will skip his presentation and go directly to the discussion. And to focus the discussion, the idea here is to start with two. There are two main topics that I propose. I suggest to stimulate the discussion in these few minutes that we still have. One is basically starting from the presentation that Christelle just gave to us. It's looking at how to address the recommendation on data. And a second one will be to look at the hypothetical terms of reference for an international working group on eggplant that has been mentioned during Svein's presentation. So I will suggest we start with the first one, and then if we still have time, move to the second one. So is there anyone who would like to make some remarks on how ACPGR members could contribute to address the recommendation on data? I see actually we also have Stefan Weiss from among the attendees, so that's very good that he can be there, considering that we're talking about data. Yeah, if any in the attendees wants to make any remark on this aspect, this is the moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go on.
I just want to agree with Christelle and also encourage everybody to share your data in the first step with Eurisco, and then in the second step with Genesis. We are currently working on a very tighter coupling of the two systems so that we can obtain synergies by using same infrastructure, same software. And the idea is to free resources on Eurisco side to focus more on the huge network that is behind the network of data providers. That is the real unique selling point of Eurisco, and also on data quality issues. And this will, in the long run, benefit everybody. So I really encourage everybody to share data.
Thanks, Stefan. Thanks a lot for your intervention. Is anyone else interested to contribute to something related to the aspect of data sharing and data quality? We will also welcome any comments regarding the current PEPPER project, the Euro-Pepperland project, and how we could contribute to this aspect.
Since we have Pasquale, okay, I see Sandra would like to speak, but let me say that Pasquale is the chair of the Solanaci working group. So I wonder if you would like to comment on the fact, for example, that many data are missing in Eurisco from some important collections, and if the working group could be able to develop an initiative to encourage sharing more data. But let's see, Sandra had, while Pasquale, you think about it, Sandra can have the word, I think.
Okay, all right, I don't have a camera, so you cannot see me, but I'm also working with Lorenzo at the ECPGR, and I'm the coordinator of the European Evaluation Network. That is a public-private partnership aiming to gather information and knowledge on gene bank accessions, which was highlighted as some of the priority actions for both the Eggplant and the Pepper strategies. And the Euro-Pepperland project is in a way a continuation or expansion of our existing Pepper network. And I liked very much the outline for this proposed project for the eggplants, with some numbers that were given in terms of funds needed, because I think it's a good way of trying to encourage thinking about how to actually implement the strategies at at various levels. And from our experience here with Pepper, we started it, the network, shortly before the tomato brown rugose fruit virus became a real issue in Europe. And we see that the distribution has been it has been a challenge across Europe to get it to different evaluators, to different network partners that would do trials. And it's a big challenge for the gene banks, actually, also, I think, to make sure that those materials are applying the right phytosanitary standards. And so really excuse me, the regeneration of material to proper phytosanitary standards and in sufficient quantities to really enable a systematic evaluation. I think it's really a priority, and for this funding and capacity is limited. That's what I see in some of my networks, not just in the Pepper network. So maybe this is something that we will need to address as we aim to continue our evaluation networks for the various crops that we have established. And so the Eggplant project is part of this, but there's unfortunately not enough money really to really systematically regenerate all the materials that we're studying in the Eggplant project. And maybe Pasquale has also something to add to this. Thanks. Very nice presentations also. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sandra, for your remarks. That's very useful to know more. And yes, if there's anybody else who want to give a contribution on this aspect, we'll wait a few other seconds to see if there's other message on the chat. Yeah, I don't see any other questions related to this aspect or either attendees raising their hands. So,
Sorry, Peter.
yeah.
In the Q&A, there's a question about if an institution is interested in forwarding some of their accessions to Svalbard, is there a required viability needed for it to be accepted for safety duplication?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not directly involved in the process of sending material to Svalbard, but I assume, yes, I assume you need to make a viability test of the accession before sending away. There's a specific protocol to get accession there. So my answer will be a yes. To be verified, and if the person who make the question wants to get in touch later, I don't see the name, it's anonymous, but the person who make the question want to get in touch, I can get in touch directly with my colleagues that works directly on facilitating the safety duplication at Svalbard as part of one of our projects. Okay, we still have a few minutes left. So as I don't see other intervention on this topic, I will move to the second topic of this discussion that I get prepared. So it was mentioned in the presentation related to the eggplant strategies. It was mentioned that one of the priorities identified is to establish a global working group on eggplant genetic resources. And so I will share my screen and show like an hypothetical TOR terms of reference for this group as a input to this group as to see what's the reaction and if stimulates any thoughts. And in the meantime, if somebody wants to make any contribution or ideas related to these suggested priorities of establishing a global working group, that's also welcome. So I hope you can now see my screen. So this was one of the priorities mentioned, and so here I kind of took some text from the strategies and added also a little bit. But basically the idea is to have a global working group that coordinate and support global efforts for the effective conservation, characterization, evaluation, documentation, and use of eggplant genetic resources. And then basically it lists several of the functions that this working group will have. I will show here and mention some of them, and then see if there's any attendee that wants to make an intervention in this last 5 minutes that we still have. So it's mentioned function of the working group as select accessions to be included in a global eggplant collection, develop an eggplant knowledge platform, contribute to identifying compiling content for an eggplant knowledge platform, encourage adoption of unified standards and tools for documentation, evaluation, and storage, there's the aspect of data that we just mentioned, facilitate data sharing and integration into global platforms, characterize the global eggplant collection morphologically and genetically to enhance the use of the collection and making a global core collection of brinjal eggplant. Support collaborative activities associated with accession, regeneration, and safety duplication to reduce backlogs, and help to make all accessions available to user, and develop a framework of protocols and management practices to address and reduce the risk associated with seed-borne diseases, including viruses and viruses. So yeah, we still have a few minutes left, and if somebody wants to make an intervention based on stimulated by this, that's welcome.
A few things about this. This seems to be very genetic resources community oriented. It might make sense to make it more into a community of practice and involve also the breeding community in this. Because they can indicate what type of material is relevant to their work. Another aspect is that the general issue of quality. I mean, if material is in a gene bank, does it mean that it is safely conserved? This has to be addressed. Does it mean that it is accessible? And so far, the global crop strategies had to move around those issues a little carefully. But I think we can now tackle them head on. So one, community of practice involving the users, and two, quality of the conservation in gene banks. Could you say something about that, Peter?
Can you repeat the second point that I missed?
Well, the first one is the community of practice involving the breeding community.
Yeah.
Which is a challenge, but it is highly relevant, I think, because then we know what is lacking and what gene pools they would have liked to have access to and so forth. Plus, and that links to the second point, the user community knows which collections are accessible and how they can get their material. So that second point is, if we look at the conservation status of this crop or eggplant or whatever, the relevance of the quality of the conservation is the material in a gene bank where it will be accessible in the future. Is it accessible now? How well is it conserved? That's an issue that we also need to address if we talk about global strategies and future of plant genetic resources.
Okay, thanks for these remarks. And will be the peer review gene banks that has been tested by the Progress Project one way to catalyze that? Would you think that would be a good way to contribute to that?
Well, there we did get insights in the quality of conservation, and we often observed that material was not available. So that only showed how important it is to raise that level of the quality. If we create an overview of reliable conserved plant genetic resources for any crop, that will not involve all collections in the world for that crop. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Very, very concrete. What's the status of Vavilov in such an overview? They will have, of all crops, many accessions, but are they reliably conserved and are they available?
Yes, that's a really great point. And that's why I was thinking about the peer review, because that provides, from my point of view, a lot of value, because it goes to check and give a further higher level of validation than just looking at the data that is obtained through database or through survey, to actually have the verification on the spot. And so that's I found it a great system, and also a great resource to have available these reviews publicly published that one can check when one wants to access that information. So thanks for this intervention. And we are getting very close to concluding this webinar. We have 2 minutes left. So is there any other intervention that for this last couple of minutes? Oh, I don't see anything. Then I'll proceed with thanking everybody for taking the time to attending this and to be with us for 1 hour and a half. It's my hope that this was informative, and of course, if somebody has questions or left, they can contact us directly, which is very welcome and a way to build up on what has been discussed. And yeah, the aim here was to raise awareness on the strategies, to look at the relevance of ACPGR, and in particular these groups connected to the strategies and the particular priorities mentioned, and to have a small discussion, as mentioned, focusing on a couple of points to be more narrowed down and focused. So thanks a lot. And Lorenzo, if you want to do also some remarks to conclude.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, I would like to thank you and all the presenters, Christelle and Svein. I think this was definitely informative. This has been recorded, so it will be possible also to watch by those who were not here. I think you gave a good feedback to us on needs, gaps, and opportunities, especially the information from Christelle. And I think you also got some feedback on how difficult it is to mobilize network, a global network especially, and there are several hiccups and that needs to be fixed, and we are all working in the same direction in any case. So I hope you will decide to have more of these presentations on strategies in the future. So we are open, and we can think how to best organize it in the future as well. So thank you very, very much, all the participants, for your time and patience, and have a good lunch, and come back to the next opportunity to us. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.